What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 114. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another movie discussion where we talk about a new film that we got to check out in theaters or streaming. I break down my full thoughts, give you some pros and cons, favorite moments, and then at the end of the podcast, we talk about, is this new film timeless? Does it stand the test of time to be able to be rewatched multiple times in the future? Before we go into this week's episode, though, I did want to call out episode 113 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Go check it out. I ended up talking about Captain America Brave New World. A lot of discourse has been going on around the internet about this MCU entry. Is it the worst MCU movie? Is it okay? Is it good? Listen to episode 113 of the Timeless Movie Podcast to get my full thoughts on Captain America Brave New World and where I ended up landing on this specific film. And also, go check out the comments, leave a comment, leave a review. Let's interact. That way we can talk a little bit more about other movies that end up coming out in 2025. Also, on socials, go ahead and check out Instagram as well as Blue Sky and Threads. I am on there. Search up Timeless Movie Podcast. Let's talk about other movies that you guys have seen or either feedback that you guys would want me to do on the podcast as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive into episode 114, in which we are talking about Neon's new movie, The Monkey. This one is directed by Oz Perkins and it stars Theo James. Now, if you guys didn't check it out in 2024, a great horror movie called Longlegs came out, and that one was also directed by Oz Perkins. Now, I have not been a big fan of horror movies in the past, but something changed. In 2024, I started watching and giving a little bit more of a chance to these horror movies, and I was really surprised at how great Longlegs was. So as soon as I heard that Oz Perkins was going to have another movie coming out, I was on board. I also ended up checking out the trailer for The Monkey, which is a more of like a horror comedy, and even while watching it, it just had a very different type of a tone as compared to the Longlegs film that came out last year. Longlegs was very creepy, it was eerie, it just had you on the edge of your seat as you were watching it. And then when I watched the trailer for The Monkey, it was completely opposite. It was more like inviting, like it wants you to watch it. Yeah, check out these funny moments. People are gonna die in ridiculous ways, but I feel like it was going to catch me off guard as I watched the movie. So again, the trailer hooked me. I wanted to watch it. So I think this is a great transition into my non-spoiler thoughts now that I got to check out The Monkey in theaters. All right, after leaving the theater and watching The Monkey, I got to say that this movie was really good. Man, I had such a fun time. There was hilarious moments throughout this movie. A lot of wild and crazy deaths. A lot of gore, not surprisingly, but I wasn't expecting as much gore. And it all just adds to the hilarious moments that are happening throughout the movie. And I was actually surprised at how funny it was going to be. Now, I know that the trailer sets it up that way, but sometimes trailers can be very misleading. It seems like it'll be a funny movie and then it ends up not being funny, or sometimes something that looks like it's going to be very horror filled and then it's really not scary at all. But no, this one, it has elements of tension. It has a lot of different types of funny scenes, and then surprisingly has a lot of emotional moments that caught me off guard. But it was a positive. It was a good thing. I love it when a movie can show me a specific type of aspect in the trailer, and then when I watch the full movie, it just slips in a couple of things that really make me enjoy the experience even more. So, got to give it props for that. Now, speaking of the story, let me give you a little general synopsis of The Monkey. That way, if you are on the fence about watching it, hopefully this kind of gives you a general idea as to what it is about. The film starts off with the introduction of this monkey, which is basically a little toy figure. It has drumsticks and it has a little drum. And every time somebody turns the knob and it plays this drum beat, somebody dies randomly. There is no specific decision. You don't tell the monkey who to kill. It just randomly kills somebody around there. And it makes it look like a freaking coincidence or like something just going wrong. It's very wild, but they do a good job in the movie to kind of set you up with, here is what this monkey does. It is cursed. You don't know why it's cursed or where it comes from or if it has a presence inside. but it just sets you up with this is the figure that main characters are going to have to deal with throughout the movie. And then we get introduced to the main characters, which are twin brothers called Hal and Bill. You start off with Hal and Bill at a young age. Hal ends up being the one that gets bullied by all the kids at school. And then worse off, he gets bullied by Bill every single time they're at home. And then one random day, Hal and Bill end up going through the closet of their absent father. He's not a part of their lives anymore, but he has a closet full of random stuff and items that he would collect as a pilot. And after they go through and rummage through all the different stuff that he had, they end up finding a box. And in this box is the monkey that they introduced at the beginning of the movie. And so Hal and Bill, as kids would do, they open up the box, they take out the monkey, and they turn the knob. And all of a sudden, they end up seeing death occur around them. They start losing people that they love, family members, friends, and then random people just around them. And so after they witness a horrific death, Hal and Bill have no other choice but to box up this monkey, wrap it up in chains, and throw it down a well in order to get rid of this cursed item. And at that point, Hal and Bill, they think they're done. Like, okay, we got rid of this. We can now live our lives. And then 25 years later, they grow up and they eventually find out that the monkey has now returned in order to cause even more havoc and chaos in their lives. So that's where I'm going to stop in regards to the general synopsis of this movie. Once again, got to make it clear, I had a fun time with the monkey. It is such a good story overall. Again, it has a nice little mix of comedy, emotion, as well as some tension-filled moments. I also really enjoyed the way that they kind of talked about the theme of death. Obviously, it does deal with a very dark kind of a theme of like how every human is going to be impacted by death in some way. And so they kind of tackle that type of a topic within this film using the monkey as that type of a connection of, hey, like that's just life, right? Like death happens everywhere and it's random at times. So again, I really enjoyed all those different types of aspects. If you enjoy horror movies and comedy and sometimes horror comedy together, then this is the film for you. I highly recommend you guys check this out in theaters. Just be aware that it does have gore in it, especially with the different deaths that occur. Some crazy things happen from people that end up dying because of the monkey. And so, okay, if you're not good with gore and you're not really into that kind of stuff in regards to horror movies, then I would say that you could stay away from this movie. Other than that, though, if you enjoy horror, if you don't mind a little bit of gore and craziness as people's bodies and body parts start flying, and if you're all good with that, then definitely recommend check out a local theater and watch The Monkey. All right, those are my non-spoiler thoughts about The Monkey. Let's start spoiling a little bit more of this movie and dive into some pros and cons. That way you guys can get a better sense as to what are my thoughts about this movie and just dissect it a little bit more. So if you have not seen The Monkey, jump out of the video, watch the movie, come back, and in the comments, let me know if you agree or disagree with some of these pros and cons. All right, first pro, let's dive in. I got to call out the incredible sound design of The Monkey. They nailed it with all the different types of sound that they were able to incorporate in this movie to add to the ambiance, to add to the atmosphere. It's not only just the monkey. The monkey has a very cool kind of drum beat that ends up playing. It's the turning of the knob. It's the way the drumstick kind of moves around the monkey's hand. Everything was just so focused in on from a sound perspective. And again, it just adds more tension to the scenes that you're watching. Apart from the monkey sound design, I also got to call out that I really enjoyed the sound of like random things in the movie, like the sound of bees flying around before they fly into somebody's mouth and kill that person from within. The sound of a gun going off, and the sound of an old school dial phone just getting slammed. Stuff like that. It's just random items in rooms that were being recorded. Everything just felt so real, like if you were there with the actors in that specific scene. Now, I can say that this probably has to do with me being at a theater, right? They play the speakers super loud, so it makes sense why the sound design was really good. But let me know if you disagree, but I feel like the sound design, everything, the monkey, the different deaths that occur. There's like I mentioned before, there's a death where somebody dives into a pool and it's going to be electrocuted, and their body just blows up, and the body parts are just going all over the place. And even that sound design sounded very realistic. So I got to call out for the sound team of the monkey. You guys did a great job in regards to making everything feel so authentic, and it just adds to the atmosphere of the movie. Second pro for me is going to be the cinematography and the camera work that was done for the monkey itself. The monkey's just a toy. But what I love most, and this is something that I wish a lot of other horror movies would do, especially when you're dealing with an object, a doll, whatever it might be, I think it's going to be very important that you got to give these types of figures some presence. And the cinematography and the camera did such a great job to make this monkey feel evil. There was shots where the camera was like below the monkey, and the monkey's just giving Hal or Bill these very dirty looks. And again, it's not doing anything else. The monkey doesn't talk. All it does is play a little drum beat, and it moves its mouth, but like it doesn't talk or anything. And yet you feel this eerie feeling when the monkey comes out, even in moments where like you could just see the silhouette of a monkey and he's outside the house in the dark, and it just looks so damn creepy. So I gotta give a shout out to the cinematographer, the camera team for the monkey. Everything about the way that they kind of filmed this monkey just made it feel like it was a character of its own, and I think they just nailed it. There's even a scene where the monkey's in a car, and the camera starts in the back seat, and it kind of just slowly pans, and it shows, and it looks like we're almost sneaking in on the monkey before he plays his little drum beat and ends up killing somebody. So I really enjoyed all the work that was done to make the monkey just feel larger than life. And again, it's the shortest thing. It doesn't even, compared to the characters that were in the scenes, it's super small, yet they never made it feel small. It was always huge. It was always the biggest thing in the room. So really love that in regards to the monkey. All right, third and final pro for me is going to be the emotional beats of this story. Like I mentioned again, I was going in just expecting horror and comedy, and maybe a couple of things that would kind of try to make it very grounded. But there were just some things that just hit me really hard in regards to, again, the theme of death. Specifically, a scene where, Hal and Bill, they're younger. And like I mentioned a little bit before, Hal is the one that gets bullied a lot by all the kids at school, as well as by his own brother. And so when they have this monkey, Hal is just so infuriated. He is so pissed off that he ends up turning the knob on the monkey, and he tells the monkey, I want you to kill my brother, because of how pissed off he is that his brother just has a better life. And as you find out, as the story rolls along, the monkey does not have a list. It just kills at random. So what does it do? It ends up taking Hal and Bill's mother. And that scene, not the fact that they took his mother, but what happens afterwards. They go to the funeral. It's an open casket, and Bill, who is the kid that again, he seems to be the one that wants to bully and make fun of his brother, he ends up getting up in the funeral, and he thinks it's a joke. He says, "Okay, mom, stop playing around. Wake up. This isn't a joke anymore. Wake up." And it just hit me so deep. I was like, because it feels like that is something that a kid would do. If I lost my mother, if I lost somebody that I love so much, and especially at that age when you can't even process what death is, you're thinking to yourself, no, this is all a joke. Like there's no way. Especially when you're younger, you think that your parents will live forever. You think your parents are going to be there all the time. And Bill was hit really hard with that. And so that was one of those emotional moments that I was not expecting, but it was so believable as they were playing out that scene. So had to call it out. And then another emotional moment is 25 years later. Now Hal and Bill are grown up, and Hal ends up having a kid named Petey. Now, he keeps his life very much separate from Petey because Hal feels that he has a terrible life. He feels that he's cursed, and he doesn't want to pass on that curse to Petey. And so he basically only sees him once a year for his birthday. And there's moments where they're on this kind of adventure where they're having to kind of find the monkey, and Hal has this look on his face where all he wants to do is just tell Petey the truth, and he just resists, and he just cannot really get that feeling and let that feeling in his chest to tell him what's really going on in his life. And he wants to let PD in order to kind of just understand, like, here's how hard it's kind of been, and he just can't. And so a lot of great moments were had between Hal and Petey, and a lot of it within motel rooms since they were kind of going around in this part of the movie. But really enjoyed those aspects, so I had to call those out. The emotional beats in this movie really just surprised me, but it was a really good positive, which is why I included it as a pro. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the one con or nitpick I had about the monkey. This one's very small, won't spend too much time on it, but I do want to say that the con that I had was the introduction of this character named Ricky. So, this character ends up interacting with the main characters only because he actually ends up purchasing the monkey at a little garage or yard sale. And, he ends up getting the monkey and he ends up kind of forming a connection to it where it starts showing his background. And it starts showing that he also had a father that was basically absent in him and his brother's life. And so they start building this kind of almost like a background for Ricky to kind of see like how this might connect with Hal and Bill. And then all of a sudden, Ricky ends up dying, and then they just kill him off. And so I was like, why set up all this background? Why show us a little bit of a flashback of when he was younger if you're just gonna kill him off? So that really kind of confused me a little bit. I thought they were gonna start making the connection that the monkey only goes towards twin brothers or brothers in general that don't have a father. I just didn't really know where that went. Again, it may have just gone right over my head, but I just didn't really understand why they had to introduce this character of Ricky and show his flashbacks if they were just going to kill him off later on. So that's really my only nitpick, my only little con that I had. Other than that, I still enjoyed the movie. So let's keep talking about some positives as we talk about our favorite things of the monkey. I'll jump into my favorite performance. This one's easy. I'm going to give it to Theo James as Hal and Bill. You heard me right. Theo James plays both brothers as they grow older and they're in their 30s. And Theo James does a great job as both. He's able to kind of change up the way that he's able to kind of, really portray the emotion of both characters. And also want to call out that this is one of our first performances where an actor plays two different characters that interact in 2025. Be on the lookout because Mickey 17, we have Robert Pattinson. We also have Alto Nights with Robert De Niro, as well as Sinners with Michael B. Jordan. So, very interesting year of 2025 movies that are using one actor to play multiple characters. But besides the point, let's jump back into The Monkey, in which Theo James is my favorite performance. As Hal, he plays more of a reserved character. He's very quiet, doesn't like to interact, and is definitely more introverted. And then you have Bill, who, as a kid, he was a lot more extroverted, was very talkative. But then as an adult, he's just much more menacing. You could see the pain on Bill's face in regards to what his mission is, because you end up finding out that he's actually the true antagonist of this movie. But the way that Theo James played both characters was just so great. You had to make them different, even though they were twin brothers. You had to make both of them play very differently, and even in the tone of voice. Like for Bill, you can hear the pain. You can hear that he's been holding a grudge against Hal all of his life ever since he lost their mother. And again, you could hear it in that voice. Whereas you have Hal, who again is still very introverted and very reserved, but his tone of voice is just much more calm and relaxed. So, really appreciated the performance of Theo James as Hal and Bill. So, that's why Theo James is my favorite performance in The Monkey. Let's go ahead and move on to my favorite scene. And there's actually a cool scene where they basically reveal that the antagonist of the movie is, well, partly the monkey, but who's turning the knob? It is none other than Hal's twin brother, Bill, played by Theo James. And they have a very funny montage where you have Bill go from the moment that his mom died all the way up to the 25 years later moment, and it kind of explores what Bill was doing. He was basically depressed. He didn't want to take off his funeral suit because he didn't want to experience death ever again. And because he ended up connecting the dots, he ended up realizing that his brother Hal was the reason why they lost their mother. And so what does he do? He goes on a full on revenge tour and he tries to find the monkey once again. He goes to different places and then he starts getting these funny signs from the universe. Like, he's at like a specific restaurant and then all of a sudden on the board, he sees that the year is 2024, I believe, and it's the year of the monkey. And then he goes to different places and he sees the monkey randomly. He even goes to like a strip club and then the stripper ends up bending over and then has the monkey's face. And so all these different types of moments end up happening. But I really enjoyed that full montage revealing that Bill is the true antagonist. He is the one that wants to get rid of Hal, and just all those different moments of how the monkey has just been following him as well. All right, and then last but not least, favorite shot or frame of the monkey. No surprise here, but it's going to involve the monkey. And in this case, there's a part in the third act where Bill is so frustrated that he's trying to force the monkey to play the drum. And he's trying all of his power to move the hands, doing all he can. And then, boom, all of a sudden, he shoves the toy shoves him, he falls down, and then the monkey goes crazy and it starts slamming the drumsticks on the drum as fast as it can, and it just starts going crazy, and the sound just starts echoing the entire room. There's a bunch of TVs around the monkey, and that specific shot of the monkey just slamming at high speed, that shot just looked really cool because you could see everything else vibrating almost like an earthquake is hitting because of the power of this monkey and what it's about to unleash on the world in regards to death. So that specific shot, I explained a lot of it, but it's basically just the monkey going at a crazy speed, drumming and just causing a lot of havoc around the city. So that's going to be my favorite shot, something I can see as a screensaver in regards to this movie. All right, those are my full pros and cons, my favorite moments and performances and favorite shot. Let me know down below, guys, in the comments whether you agreed or disagreed with any of the thoughts that I had. That way we can interact a little bit more about the monkey. Without further ado, though, let's go ahead and wrap this up with the final segment in which we are going to decide whether the monkey is a timeless movie. Can I see myself rewatching this various times in the future? Although I did really enjoy The Monkey, I thought it was hilarious. There was so many funny scenes, a lot of death, obviously, but they're able to kind of really tie it all together in regards to balancing horror, emotion, and the comedy. I'm a little bit on the fence, but I think as of today, I'm going to say that this movie is not timeless. I would still definitely recommend people watch it as long as you're good with death and gore that's happening in this movie. It's just so funny. And the performances throughout, at least for me, worked in regards to Theo James interacting with himself, interacting with Petey. So there's a lot of good things I have to say about this movie. But, to me, apart from it being funny, I don't know if I would want to continue watching all of those death scenes, especially like when it comes to funny movies where, like, again, the joke, the first time, yes, it's going to land. Second time, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. And eventually wears off. And I feel like that's could be the same thing in regards to the death that occurs and the different death scenes that happen in the monkey. When it happens the first time, you're like, holy crap, I wasn't expecting this. And then every single time you watch it, you're like, okay, well, I know this is coming. This person's going to get hit with a shotgun. Okay, this person's going to run into a post, all this different stuff. So eventually it kind of just dies down. So again, those are kind of things that I'm thinking about as of like why I wouldn't want to rewatch this movie is, I feel like the death would eventually be like, oh, okay, well, I'm tired of seeing all of these death scenes. They just kind of get very boring at that point. Or I think it's much better of an experience where you're not expecting when the death will occur. Because again, that's really when it just kind of surprises you all the way through. But those are just my opinions on whether The Monkey is a timeless movie. I want to hear from you guys though. Is this movie, The Monkey, timeless for you? Have you had a chance to check out this film? Let me know down below in the comments, wherever you're listening. That way we can interact and that way we can talk a little bit more in depth about this film. All right, everybody, thank you so much for those that stayed all the way through to listen to my full thoughts about The Monkey. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 114 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new movie in theaters or streaming, and we break it down and we decide if it is timeless. All right, guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later.